Welcome to Grit and Gravitas with Anne and Annie, bringing you savvy, spirited stories of success. We're excited to deliver 30 minutes of inspiration, impact, and goodness. We'll be bringing you guests and friends from around the country who have very special work and personal journeys. I'm Anne Deeter Gallaher, your co-host with Anne Carnathan, and this is Grit and Gravitas. Let's go. Anne Carnathan, welcome back to the Grit and Gravitas podcast studio.
Best part of the day. Best part of the week.
I know. I think people are going to think like this is part of the real, but it really is authentic.
Yes.
And we say it every, bi-weekly we record.
Here's the thing people know for sure is we're not paid actors. We're not actors at all, right? I mean, we pale in comparison, right?
We're trying, when we talked about personal brand, we like to appear as if we know what we're doing. So that's part of the personal brand.
Meanwhile, we're winging it, authentic.
Yes.
Authentic.
Well, we are that. A plus for that.
And amen.
So today's episode, and we've got a lot of future episodes swirling in our heads, and we've talked about right before we started recording today. We're going to spend a little time talking about executive positioning. It's a service on the Deeter Gallaher Group website, and it's a service that we provide, but it's a very interesting service in theory and practice.
I want you to go deeper into it because you say that, and I have no idea
what that means.
And so part of the mad skills of the Deeter Gallaher Group that we've experienced firsthand and that I've seen as a professional from a distance are world class, like A+. So I do want to understand that, A, because I don't know anything about it, and B, I'm going to learn something.
And it isn't, so 2 of our prior episodes were Building Social Capital. That was Mechanicsburg Chamber, which was so fun. Our first live and off-site, out-of-studio experience.
It was fun.
And Building Your Personal Brand, which was also a prior episode. So this is really, we have a theme, we're coming on a theme, and building on that, executive positioning. Ordinarily, that is a service that the C-suite would focus on, executives, but anybody, middle management, actually anybody coming out of college should be paying attention to their own positioning in the business world. So that would be, where do you want to be seen? Who do you want to be seen with? What do you want to be saying? And where do you want to serve?
It's really an extension, just so I understand. And if I can, anyone can. So make it simple. You are the company you keep.
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly. And so you have to bring strategy to that. And when you don't, or no forethought on that, you end up regretting a picture you might have appeared in or a panel you might have sat on, and you didn't know that conversation was going to take a left turn like it did. And then that's recorded and sits on social media. If you end up saying yes to every person who says, hey, can I grab a selfie with you? I would caution you, especially if you're an executive, to have a process to filter that. Have a person with you to filter that and say, let me think about that. Let me get back to you on capturing that photo, because that may not be an individual or a cause or a situation you want to be linked to. And we often quickly say yes to those things, and we should take a step back and think about them. So when I say we're opening back up now since COVID, and conferences are starting up, and panels and presentations and events. And so part of executives, part of their strategy is, where do I want to speak? Are you seeking a keynote position? That's a position of leadership. And that's a great PR angle for an executive or a rising, aspiring executive. So you put some thought into that. Where can I bring my expertise? Is it a nonprofit association? Is it a industry association or organization? Is it among peers? Is it with a media organization, say a Central Penn Business Journal or the Wall Street Journal does forums? So executive forums, and they could be topical. Maybe it's on media, maybe it's on energy. Those are positions that are leadership and send a clear signal to your peers or to your company or to your competitors that you have gravitas, you are a person of insights and knowledge, and it rises, it elevates your executive status.
And when you're networking, which is one of those sort of arcane terms that to me, and I said this at any opportunity, someone is a potential good connection, and not necessarily to within the worst case not use them later, but to sort of influence in a way that is in your heart. And when there's an opportunity for a larger amount of people, they're still all people. It just increases the opportunity
Right.
all at once. And so the blessing and the curse, because that crowd, you have no idea who's in it. You have no idea why they're there. You have no idea whatsoever what the motivation is, if they even want to be there. But I would submit to you, how is that different really than anyone you meet, randomly or otherwise?
Right.
And so what was always intriguing to me, especially as a commissioned salesperson, was I am the brand. But I am also the product, right? They're going to see the product the way I am trying to help them see it or persuade them to see it. And it was always a presidential thing to me. Like, I cared how I presented myself. And of course, my mom's a huge influence on that, in terms of how I looked.
Right.
And the way I held myself.
And that's your personal brand.
Exactly. And I do think that at the point to which we don't know in college or coming out of college for young women, right? There's never, ever, ever, a second chance to make a first impression. Yeah. It's why cliches stay around.
Right.
If we want to crystallize that. And so now you're talking about an executive position. And my point to that is I was still in college at Ship Hip Hooray when I started to sell radio. And it was still, I defined that I wanted to look presidential and like an executive. The professionalism mattered to me. And so, the other day I'm at a lunch meeting and two men walk in suits, and I was like, excuse me. I said, so I just had sheer curiosity. Who in the world is still putting a suit on? What
did you say that?
I did. Oh, I said, I absolutely love and appreciate as an executive and as a professional the way you look.
Yeah.
What do you do? Well, we're from Baltimore and we're in commercial real estate, and we never didn't come in and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I just really appreciate that. So the point to everything is if dressing's going to dress down and this is the way it's going to be and nobody's ever going to put on a tie and everything, well, we have a tremendous amount of partners that have ties on, right? So my guys have ties around their doorknobs and stuff when they were in the office. And I go, you got to tie up, right? You got to tie up. And so that's a really long-winded way to say you have an impression, right? And you have a brand. And I always thought of myself as executive, right? And how is that first impression and how are you presenting that? And
and I would say it mirrors, maybe a little easier way to understand is the dress for success. I'm dating myself by even referring to that. Dress for the job.
Still sounds really good. It rhymes, alliteration.
Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. So you're immediately top of mind. It is the same thing for executive positioning. Position for the job you want. So start traveling in those circles, surrounding yourself, increasing your circle of influence with the people and the positions that you hope to aspire to. So that would mean if you want leadership, start joining organizations full of leaders. I would say encourage you to seek a board seat. It's easy to start. I don't want to say it's easy. Start with something you're passionate about and apply to serve. Do not wait for someone to knock on your door. So executives, we once we spend a lot of time with the C-suite, understand what their 1-year, 5-year goals are. We map out a strategy of where are there board positions they need to sit on, either because the people they would be serving with are good for them to know, a stronger circle of influence, a cause or organization they're passionate about, certainly. Are there events they need to lead? And if they don't find one, can we help create one for them? Maybe there's a round table that they are so smart, we can position them as the keynote speaker. And if there isn't an organization that suits them, we will create one. We will create the event and put it together, partner with another, a media firm like a Central Penn Business Journal, something similar to that, find a sponsor and put the event off. So those are ways where you elevate your community standing, your executive leadership, your influence for a better impact for everybody, for a win-win.
Yeah, and I listened to this, and it's extraordinary because you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a business plan for an executive.
It's a personal
because
business plan.
That's it. So executive/personal, because I'm constantly for Universal is it's 1 year, it's 3 years, it's 5 years, and we're in today. And you know how fast time goes. So that year is just bloop, like gone. Well, 3 years is 3 years. And I look back at 3 years ago and it doesn't look anything like it does today.
Yeah.
Who's anticipating COVID? And I feel like when I struggled so much mentally when COVID started, just with everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to see it begin to be amplified, as a national narrative, because I myself just struggled mightily.
Right.
And I just voice it like, woof, this is really tough. And when I think about having someone like you who, look, you care about me, you have a vested interest in how I feel, where I'm headed. And so to have that currency, and you do with the Deeter Gallaher group, right? Or you're not working with them. It reminds me of a 1, 3, and 5 year plan. And when I think about how I struggled, it's just always better to know here's a plan.
Right.
And it's easier to tweak a plan than to not have one.
No, absolutely. You start thinking of it now, even if you aspire to an executive position, say you're 30 years old, and you really, in your 10-year plan, you want to lead either your own company, the organization you're in, you see yourself somewhere else. Start to write, this is not rocket science, but start to make a list of the top 3 places you feel you would add value. Do you want to speak? Do you want to be a keynote somewhere? Do you want to win an award application that really would elevate you? We've talked about colleagues of ours, people we deeply admire, and they're winning, the top 25 individuals in specific industries. Those are tremendous opportunities, not only to show the world how smart you are and the value that you bring, but it's good to tell the story. It tells the story of your company. For when Anne Carnathan rises, Universal Media rises. We learn more about you. The legacy is stronger and deeper, and that's a good thing. That's not, like, oh, I don't really want to brag or I don't want to lead. We need leaders now more than ever.
And accomplishments need to be amplified.
Yes.
And my experiences have been with women that we don't necessarily have a comfortability doing that. I'm not one of those because I know how hard earned. I know how hard I've fought. Sometimes I don't know when to stop fighting because I've never not fought. And what I really love for me and what you're saying is I am an enormous goal oriented.
Right.
There's almost nothing I don't have a goal for. And I think that visualization, I will it into reality.
Yeah.
The same things I say over and over and over again, I will into reality. And lots of times, to your point, am I brave or am I acting brave? I'm a leader. It's a kid falling, looking up at you. Should I cry? What just happened? Oh, nope, dust yourself off, pop back up, and they don't cry. Oh, no, are you okay? Why? Right? It's just this tire, that's going to really annoy a listener. But the bottom line is what I love about it is I can see how I would tweak that, right, to what is my own now plan,
Right.
comfortability, the ability to just sort of not take something you learn and go, well, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm not going to eat that way. I'm not going to follow this. I'm not going to do that. Well, what would you do then? What could you learn from it and take to strengthen your bench, right? And to be able to look out and say, woo, man, like you had me at like tweaking, and
Yeah.
here's the goal, right?
Right.
Here's the goal with her. And I don't care what you do, to me, but this is my lens, you have to have a goal.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll say, what does success look like? Because you can't get to the end and go, well, I thought, blah, blah. No, we didn't agree to that. We have to be in concert. We have to collaborate. We each have to have skin in the game. The risk has to be a shared risk, or we don't have a relationship. We each have to risk.
You touch on such an important point, and it probably can't be emphasized enough, is women's hesitancy to share their triumphs, talk about their successes. In the world of PR, if I had $1 for every time a female said, I don't really want to brag, a private path to success is not a model for the rest of us women. If I don't know how you reach your pinnacle and what you overcame and some of the roadmap you had, how will we ever bring everybody else? How will any of these barriers be broken down?
How are you different?
No.
I mean, how are you differentiating?
So it's not when I know that when people say I don't really want to brag, they say that in a positive way, like they do. I mean, I'm all for humility. But some of these stories have to be told, or we won't know the legacy, and the next generation, our children and our children's children won't know. How did they navigate that?
And we're not going to change the narrative. That's the bottom line.
No.
If we don't change it a story at a time, an accomplishment
so
at a time.
let me say, this executive positioning episode may be more strongly encouraged for the women. Like, get out there, set your strategy, your goals, very simply. Where do you want to serve? Where do you want to lead? Where can you be a keynote or be a panelist, and start making that list and seek those around you. We know plenty of women that'll help make that happen.
You said in a show, being invisible is not a business
advantage.
And one of the ironies of this, right? Because nothing is black and white. Nothing is unequivocally this way.
Right.
And so my point to that is, when I was named president and CEO, with a big reception at the Whitaker Center.
Loved it.
Extraordinary. And, essentially someone walks up to me and says, oh, hey, you got what you always wanted. And I, snap around like, okay, well, Anne, honestly, I never in a million years ever had a thought that I would be the president.
Was that a compliment?
And
Were they complimenting you?
I think so, because they did know I was very goal oriented.
Yes,
They're
yes.
like, oh, she got this. That was like, check that box, right? That was on the bucket list of accomplishments. And so we talk about unintended consequences,
Yes, yeah.
and normally when we say that, it's damage.
Yeah.
And I like to turn things on their ear.
Good business vitamin. There we go.
And when someone said this to me, they talk and talk, and you realize when you leave they didn't say anything. And so those kinds of buzzwords and phrases, if I just throw those in, unintended consequence, it feels negative, because that's the connotation with which we always use it. But if I said one of the unintended consequences of grit and gravitas is more time with you, and this overjoyed feeling of euphoria, inspiration, motivation, I didn't anticipate that, nor did I anticipate doing what I thought was the way to do business at Universal Media, evolving into an executive position, first outside the family in 35 years as president and CEO. Tremendous honor, tremendous privilege, accidental almost, because all I did was put my head down and apply my personal brand to what I thought was the obligation I had to the partners I brought in that were here because of me.
Right.
And this is where the lines blur. I bring myself every day. It doesn't change.
Right.
But it isn't who I am. It's what I do. But foundationally, you're trying to find people that to me, that you can go deeper with, that you have, okay, well, it is work, right? But I get this joyous person that I love, I appreciate, that I just admire more in my life every day. So I work with them. So it's this juxtaposition of how plans change, but not necessarily for the worse.
Right.
So not reaching a goal I accomplished it just wasn't ever a goal. But wow, it's phenomenal. Yeah, I'm having the best time I've ever had.
Amen. And you're doing
Hardest
extraordinary.
and the most difficult, right? So.
But you had to say yes. You raised your hand and said, yes, I'll assume that executive position.
I was amazed. I have to tell you, I was amazed. And every day I pinch myself because it is the most difficult thing I've done. By far.
But you're willing to tell your story, which is a roadmap for other women, especially women in STEM. We've talked about that, for the past couple months, that running a digital media agency that is foundational to analytics, and that's how your decisions are made, is part of the STEM studies and services. So having a female leading a powerhouse national firm like Universal is such a great role model to other women. I mean, it's such a great example. And if you weren't sharing your story, no other young women could aspire to what you are doing. They wouldn't see you. They think, well, there's Zuckerberg, there's big Facebook, there's big tech platforms.
It's interesting, yeah.
But if more women don't start saying yes to sharing their story, the younger women don't have the role models. And that's why I would encourage aspiring executives, start seeking where you want to speak, where you want to serve, and where you want to lead.
I think you'd say analytics and data and like the hives start to pop up, right? Because it's math and it's numbers. I just don't have that brain.
Yeah.
So there's not a chance I'm ever going to say, I'm stupid, whatever. No, I get it. But now you're looking at traditional television and radio now going from an eternity of being rated this way. If you say, the Super Bowl does this rating and that translates to this many people or households. Now you're looking at that 100% measurement changing to impressions. And so it's not just this digital, right? We're everything. And so now when you look at digital really dictating the fact, when you think about this, that a fundamental industry like television and radio is changed permanently. How about that ride?
Right.
And it's bumpy because now not only does your building have to understand it and people that are in it, 20, 30, and 40 years, the new generation's coming up, right? Going traditional what? And so think about that disruption again, not negative, but the ability to just say, well, look, you don't get to get in a job and go, yeah, I do this, but I don't do any of that. Like my CFO had a dime for every time I said, hey, numbers wise, can you just figure this out for me? And he laughs because that's what he does. He does it in 2 seconds and it would take, that's his job though. That's his swim lane, and I'm in the lane beside him doing other things. So I think there is this working grasp of things. And I do think you have to be willing at some points to let your hand off the wheel, not to text and drive, but you have to just trust that, they're going to come right back on, but there's a lack of comfortability with what you don't know is coming. You have to be open to that. And the same with, executive planning and executive road mapping, right? It's a plan, right? If I could, again, have anticipated the disruption in my 1, 3, and 5 year plan, I got a 1 year and and now, when we sit down for our leadership retreat, in November in planning 2022 for our own company, it's like, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. Here's what I see. What do you see?
Right.
It's so the way I always did employee reviews. They did their own, I did mine, and then we came together. It wasn't just a dictate because your lens is never the same. The perception is never the same. So it's just, I think I'm fascinated by this. But what you're really saying is here's this care and concern for your career. And if you want something to happen, you have to plan for it.
Plan for
For the most part.
Plan for the people you want to move forward with. Couple
Here's our business vitamin.
Quick examples. I think it was 2008 or 9, maybe 2010. I was going to an event with my co-author, Amy Howe, and it was at NASDAQ. So I said, she flew in from Memphis to Harrisburg. We took the train to New York City.
Fun.
And it was a communications event. It was fabulous. The end of the day, we closed NASDAQ and rang the bell. So it was a photo I really wanted to be in. It sits on my desk. Then you're on that 7-story Jumbotron, whatever they call that, where NASDAQ runs the, outside of
what
the
a life
office.
moment.
No, it was phenomenal. Of course, we tweeted the heck out of that experience. That was a bucket list for me. That was it seared in my memory, helped my personal brand, helped executive positioning. Then I think this was also 2009, Scott Monty at the time was Ford Motor Company's first social media digital communicator. The first in really for a Fortune 10 brand. Just burst onto the scene, was phenomenal. The more I followed him on Twitter, and I might have told the story early in our podcast, I thought that's someone we need to bring here to Harrisburg. At the time, I was on the board of the International Association of Business Communicators. I said, we need to do an event. There was no such event. I said, we need to create an event. And hence, then we will get some sponsors. L.B. Smith Ford was a sponsor, of course. That was a no-brainer. Then we will get some panelists, but we need to bring Scott Monty here. He was leading in social media communications. I wanted to tap his brain. I wanted to have dinner with him. All kinds of things. That said, it will help our organization. It will help all of those that are planning this. It will elevate your position. Knowing someone like that, having access to what he was doing, the trends he was seeing, was a business win. So we did bring him. And we had a great we created the conference. There was no plan for it, but I knew in our own personal, business plan, this is a win. We need to make it happen. So again, a business vitamin. Plan for your events. Create them if there is none. And make sure your CEO is one of the speakers. Put the panelists together. Find the sponsors. That was never a barrier to me. Money is never a barrier. You can find people, find what your end goal is. Do you want to be the expert, the subject matter expert on digital communications?
Well, that's strategy. Yeah. Here's the goal.
Yeah.
Here are the resources to get there.
And
whether they're abundant or a lack thererof, but you have to do it through people.
Here's the people that we're going to position
100%.
Either as keynotes or in leadership or, as the lead sponsor. Then go get the companies that will come and support you who have a mutual goal. They have a mutual benefit for supporting your content or your individual. Maybe they want to have dinner with the keynote. Connect all those dots, and in so doing, you just raise. Now you're much stronger circle of influence. You've elevated your respect in your business circles. And it's a win. It's a media win, too.
Yeah, and the day starts when you wake up.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And if you do that, by the grace of the good Lord, the rest is up to you. And everything starts with the first step.
Yeah.
But you have to start. You have to put motion to things, right? You have to put, in my opinion, momentum. And you can feel momentum building. I don't care what it is, what it's for. I think that's part of the way, too, as an executive. You go, you know what? I can't get this going. I can't get momentum. And so I think to wrap that thought, right, of there has to be a plan and there has to be a way to pivot and there has to be a way to just go, here's where we are, here's where we have to go. Yeah. How do we get there?
And these are career choices, right, within your career for every age. And when we say be strategic and have a plan, that might throw some younger people off like, oh, I don't know how to do that. These are baby steps. So simply make a list.
They are babies starting out, right? Who we're talking to, right? So find people like us, right? Who want to help you to do that.
And if you're a female, please say yes to media invites and leadership opportunities, not only for your own career brand, and your executive positioning, but so those generations behind you can find the way.
And for many things I pray, for this I plead, please share us.
Yes.
Please download us. Please find a way on social media with the enormity of the outlets we work really hard at. Well, the Deeter Gallaher group works really hard
You do
to essentially help us help you. Right? What does that look like? And that's
and we'd love feedback. Any new guest ideas. If anyone is seeking executive positioning and a podcast is on your list, we'd love to hear it. We'd love to hear the value that you could share with our listeners. And so we'll throw that opportunity out there too.
That's a wrap.
Have a high gear day, Anne Carnathan, until we're back in the studio again.
You do the same.
Thanks for listening. It's our desire that these stories will bring energy, ideas, and fresh thinking that you can use today. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram, and have a high gear day.